question, let me ask you something. What's the longest wall ever built by human hands? The Great Wall of China, right? Wrong. In West Africa, there once stood a wall system so massive it made the Great Wall look like a garden fence. Over 16,000 kilometers long. 4 times longer than China's wall. It took 600 years and 150 million hours of labor to build. The Guinness Book of World Records called it the world's largest earthworks carried out prior to the mechanical era. And I guarantee you've never heard of it. Because in 1897, the British Empire made sure you wouldn't. This is the story of the walls of Benin, and how they erased it all in a single bloody day. If you want more buried truths like this, like, subscribe, and share. Because what comes next will shock you. The year is 800 AD. While Europe stumbles through the Dark Ages, the Edo people in what's now Nigeria begin building something extraordinary. The walls of Benin, 16,000 kilometers of interconnected earthen ramparts and moats, 20 meters tall in places, all dug by hand, basket by basket, generation after generation. This wasn't primitive. This was engineering that required advanced mathematics and astronomical knowledge, sophisticated drainage systems, precise alignment, the kind of planning that would humble modern architects. At the center sat the great Benin city. When Portuguese traders arrived in the 15th century, they were stunned. Wide, straight streets. A massive royal palace covered in brass plaques telling the kingdom's history. Order and sophistication that made European cities look like slums. One Portuguese captain wrote that Benin City was more beautiful than Lisbon. But here's what they don't teach you in history class. All of it, every single bit, was deliberately destroyed. Not by time, not by nature, by the British Empire. With cold, calculated precision. Jump to 1897. The British want control of West Africa. Benin is one of the last independent kingdoms, and they're not interested in British rule. So the empire needs an excuse. In January, a British official named James Phillips decides to march to Benin City during Igu, the kingdom's most sacred religious festival. He's told not to come. Multiple times. The Oba, the king, sends messengers. Outsiders are forbidden during this ceremony. It's their holiest time. Phillips ignores every warning. He marches forward with armed men. They're ambushed. Most are killed. The British call it the Benin Massacre, and they use it to justify genocide. They call it a punitive expedition. That's Victorian speak for we going to annihilate everything you've ever built and steal whatever's valuable. February 1897. The British assemble 1,200 troops with Maxim guns, the first fully automatic machine guns. The Edo warriors have spears and outdated rifles. It's not a battle. It's a slaughter. Village after village burned. Anyone who resists is killed. When they reach Benin City, they torch it. The centuries-old palace? Burned. The brass plaques documenting their history? Stolen. The streets that amazed Europeans? Reduced to ash. And those magnificent walls that stood for 1,000 years? Destroyed. Methodically torn down. Because the British didn't just want to conquer Benin. They wanted to erase it from history. But first, they looted. British soldiers went through Benin City like it was Black Friday. Thousands of brass and ivory sculptures, priceless art, irreplaceable history, packed up and shipped to Europe. Sold to museums. Sold to collectors. Sold for profit. Today, you can see the Benin bronzes in the British Museum, in German museums, in American private collections. Stolen treasures from a civilization Britain destroyed, displayed as proof of their civilizing mission. For over a century, these museums refused to return them. They said they were preserving world heritage, protecting African culture, by displaying artifacts from a culture they annihilated. Think about that. They burned the civilization, stole its art, then claimed they were the ones preserving it. But stealing artifacts wasn't enough. They had to steal the story too. The British wrote the history books. In those books, Benin barely existed. When it did, it was portrayed as savage, backwards, in need of civilization. The walls, the engineering, the sophistication, downplayed, twisted into colonial propaganda. For generations, nobody taught African children about the walls of Benin. Western students learned about the Great Wall, the pyramids, the Colosseum. But the largest pre-mechanical earthwork in human history? Silence. Even now, If you go to Edo State in Nigeria, most of the walls are gone. What remains is crumbling, being torn down by locals for building materials. Because nobody told them what they were. Nobody taught them that these dirt mounds were one of humanity's greatest achievements. The British didn't just destroy the walls. They destroyed the knowledge. They erased the memory. And that's the real atrocity. When you burn a people's records, steal their art, demolish their monuments, you rob their descendants forever. Centuries later, the world doesn't even know what was lost. So why does this matter now? Because the erasure continues. There are sections of the walls of Benin that could still be preserved. UNESCO listed them in 1995, but there's no funding, no protection, no real effort to document what's left. The narrative is still controlled by those who destroyed it. Most people don't know the Great Wall wasn't the longest. Most have never heard of Benin's achievements. We visit the British Museum and admire stolen artifacts without asking how they got there. We accept the history we're given without questioning what's been left out. This is what colonialism does. It doesn't just conquer. It rewrites reality. It makes entire civilizations disappear from collective memory. So here's what you do with this information. Remember it. Share it. When someone mentions the Great Wall, tell them about Benin. When someone says colonial history is complicated, remind them about February 1897. When you see stolen artifacts in Western museums, ask why they're still there. The walls of Benin are gone, but the truth doesn't have to be. The Edo people built something that should be as famous as any wonder of the world. The British destroyed it, physically, culturally, historically, systematically erased it from human memory. That's the dark truth they buried. But now you know. The walls of Benin stood for over 1,000 years. They fell in weeks. Their memory was supposed to die with them. But empires fall too. And sometimes, the truth survives. Even if it takes centuries.